All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm excited for today's deep dive because we are tackling a topic that is so interesting to me, and I think will be to a lot of you listening right now.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people either know someone or have experienced this kind of thing themselves.
Right, exactly. So that is why we are going to be diving deep into partition actions today.
Partition actions.
Yes. And we have a really interesting video that we're going to be breaking down. And this video really frames it almost like a game. Like if you want to win a partition action, you've got to play your cards right.
Well, I mean, it really can be like that sometimes, you know? It can feel like you're going up against someone.
Like a battle, you know?
Exactly. Especially, like, think about it if you're going up against family members or even, like, former business partners.
Oh, yeah.
Those relationships can get pretty messy sometimes.
Definitely.
And when you throw property into the mix, forget about it.
Yeah. So before we get into, like, all the strategies and how to win, I do want to take a step back for anyone who maybe hasn't encountered this term before. What exactly is a partition action?
So a partition action, basically it's a legal process, and it comes into play when you have co-owners of a property who just can't agree on what to do with it.
Right.
Whether to sell it or how to divide it.
Okay.
And so they end up asking a judge to step in and make that decision for them.
Okay.
So you can imagine, like, common scenarios.
Yeah.
You know, siblings inherit a house from their parents and they just have totally different ideas about what should happen. Or business partners, you know, they're dissolving their partnership and there's that one piece of property they just can't agree on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So that's when you'd see a partition action come into play.
Okay, so we've got the basics down. Now let's get into these winning strategies that the video outlines. So the first one, it says file or respond quickly. And this seems to be a theme throughout a lot of these legal processes that we've covered. But I would love for you to kind of explain, why is that so important? Why is speed so crucial here?
Well, you know that saying, the early bird gets the worm? Well, it kind of applies here too.
Okay.
Filing first in a partition action, it can give you a strategic advantage.
Okay.
I remember this one case. It involved two siblings who were fighting over their childhood home.
Okay.
And one of them really wanted to sell it. Let's call her Sarah. The other one, David, wanted to keep it.
Right.
Sarah was the one who filed the partition action first.
Okay.
And that actually allowed her to kind of set the pace of the whole legal process.
Oh, wow.
And it basically forced David to react to her moves rather than the other way around.
So it kind of puts you in the driver's seat a little bit.
Exactly. It gives you more control over the direction of the case.
Okay, so we've got to be quick on our feet with this stuff.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Number 2 is demonstrate fair market value. And that, to me, seems pretty self-explanatory, but I'm sure there's more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds simple, right?
Right.
But accurately valuing the property that's being disputed, it's absolutely critical.
Oh.
I mean, imagine, you know, a situation where business partners are splitting up.
Yeah.
And one of them tries to lowball the value of a shared property,
Right.
maybe without getting an independent appraisal.
Right.
That could put the other partner at a huge financial disadvantage.
Right.
So having that objective assessment, like from a qualified appraiser,
Yeah.
that helps to ensure everyone's being treated fairly.
So we're taking the emotion out of it.
Exactly.
That's like hard numbers.
It's all about the data.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Strategy number 3 is prove your contributions. Why is that so important?
Okay, so let's say you've been really responsible, right? You've been paying your share of the mortgage, property taxes, maybe even covering some big repairs.
Right.
If you don't have clear documentation to prove all of that,
Yeah.
those contributions could easily be overlooked.
Oh, wow.
So you've got to keep meticulous records.
Okay.
Think receipts, bank statements, invoices, all that stuff.
Like a paper trail.
Exactly, because it establishes your financial stake in the property.
Right.
And it strengthens your case if there's going to be, you know, a sale or if you're seeking reimbursement.
So organization is key in this situation, as with many legal processes, I'm assuming.
Super important.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4. This one's interesting. Consider a buyout option. So tell me a little bit more about that.
So a buyout, it can be a really strategic move, especially if you have like a strong emotional attachment to the property.
Okay.
Or you see its long-term value.
Yeah.
Like let's say you and your siblings inherited your family's vacation cabin and you really want to keep it in the family.
Yeah.
You could offer to buy out your siblings' shares.
Oh, okay.
And that way you get to keep the property.
Right.
Plus, it opens the door for negotiation.
Right.
You might be able to reach a price that everyone's happy with and avoid that, long and potentially nasty court battle.
Yeah, because court's expensive.
It's a headache.
It's a headache. Yeah, it's stressful, definitely.
All right. And last but certainly not least, we have hire experienced legal counsel, which I feel like, is kind of a given with any legal process.
Yeah.
But talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, partition actions, they can be really complicated.
Okay.
There are so many legal procedures. There are potential pitfalls.
Yeah.
It's really important to have an experienced attorney who specializes in this area.
Okay.
They can guide you through the process.
Yeah.
They protect your rights.
Right.
And they can even anticipate challenges that might come up.
Okay.
They're your advocate. They're making sure you're not caught off guard and your interests are protected every step of the way.
It's like having a guide in this crazy world of legal stuff.
Exactly. Someone who knows the ins and outs.
Yeah. Now, something I noticed when we were watching that video was that there's a pretty strong emphasis on the power of negotiation. And I know you've kind of touched on that already.
Yeah. But even when we're talking about something that feels as, I don't know, maybe as contentious as a partition action,
right?
There seems to be room for people to find common ground.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So courts actually, they really prefer it when parties can come to an agreement on their own.
Oh, okay.
They much prefer that over having to make a ruling.
Interesting.
Remember our friends Sarah and David?
Yeah.
Even though Sarah was the one who filed that partition action, remember, they actually ended up negotiating.
Okay.
And David ended up buying out Sarah's share of the property.
Oh, wow.
So they saved a ton of time and money.
Yeah.
Plus, they avoided all that emotional stress that comes with a long court battle.
Yeah.
So it's really a win-win for everyone.
Yeah. So it seems like even though we're using this language of winning a partition action and it feels very strategic.
Right.
There's still that human element that can't be ignored.
Absolutely.
So just to kind of recapping it, I think some of the big takeaways here are really understanding your rights in a situation like this. Acting quickly, we talked about that.
Yes.
Keeping those detailed records. And seeking out expert legal counsel. But also remembering that there's room for negotiation.
Definitely.
And keeping that human element at the heart of it all.
It's crucial.
That's really interesting. And I think it's something for all our listeners to kind of think about, how do those personal dynamics, whether you're dealing with family members or business partners, how do those relationships impact the choices that people make when they're facing a partition action? And how does that ultimately shape the outcome?
Right. Does the history of the relationship affect how they approach the negotiation?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but this is a conversation I think a lot of our listeners will want to continue, amongst themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
So, as always, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
See you later.
Call now 714-442-9741. Thank you.